Okay, welcome back. We're on page 20 talking about browsers. And so, what the heck is a browser? Well, a browser is a piece of software that's installed on your machine. Now, this could be a traditional PC, tablet, phone, whatever. And it's a piece of software installed on your machine that talks to the web server at the other end. And the web server sends web pages to the browser to be rendered. And typically the rendering would be, text and photos and videos and music and those kinds of things. So the piece of software installed on your side is the browser. And as I mentioned, there are different types of browsers depending on what your personal preference is. For this particular course, using any of the browsers would probably work fine. So whatever you're comfortable with is just fine and dandy with me. Okay, the next thing to talk about is the search engine. So on page 21, and probably the most popular search engine out there is Google, although Bing is doing okay. So I go to Google and I type in kumquats, and I get what's called a search engine results page or search results page. There's even acronyms for this. An SRP, a search results page. This is a listing of all of the things that it thinks that you're asking for. Now, it could be that you're completely wrong, and none of the things in here is what you wanted. But anyway, search results page allows you to go through and perhaps see a little bit about the information, and you click on it. Now, I kind of think of this as sort of like the phone book. So let's say, for example, I wanted to, using the phone analogy, I want to call a friend of mine, Bob, and I don't remember his phone number. So I look it up in the phone book, and I get the phone number, and so I dial the number and I talk to Bob. But if I already know Bob's phone number, there's no need for me to go to the phone book to look up his number because I already know his number, right? Well, it's the same thing here. Let's say, for example, that this is where I wanted to go. I wanted to go to this Wikipedia page on kumquats. Well, that is the address on the web where that thing is stored. So if I knew that, I wouldn't actually have to go to the browser first, would I? I could just type that in. Now, I know a lot of people who are not even aware that there's an address bar up here. They've never used it. They've never, ever gone to the address bar. In fact, I'll tell them, so just go to the address bar and type in, and I get this strange look, and they go, address bar? Well, what's that? Because they've never actually typed anywhere in a browser. Okay, cool. Let's continue. So search engine is software that helps you find websites that have relevant content. Okay. On bottom of page 21, they talk about online social networking. I'm not going to go into hardly any detail, but Facebook and Flickr and all those kind of things. Basically, and I'll read their little cool definition, encourages members to share their interests, ideas, stories, photos, music, and videos with other registered users. And so, people, share their, vacation photos and their party photos and selfies. On page 23, though, there's a significant thing, one of those significant things you need to remember, for lots of reasons, one of which is it's going to appear on a test, is what's the difference between the internet and the web? Okay, the internet is this big thing. The internet is a group of computers all hooked together, all using the same protocols to talk. Okay, one of those protocols is the hypertext protocol for doing web stuff. Okay, so the web is a tiny subset. Well, it's not tiny. It's a subset of the internet. Now, so the internet could be doing file transfers. The internet could be doing email. So when I launched, Microsoft Outlook to do email, and I'm sending email to my corporate client, that has nothing to do with the web whatsoever. So the internet is bigger than the web. It encompasses a lot more stuff than just the web. Okay? So, internet is not equal to the web, even though a lot of people just use those terms interchangeably. They talk about digital safety and security, and we're going to go into this in a lot more detail in some further chapters. But they talk about, being able to protect yourself and the devices that you have. You know, viruses and other malware. Again, we're going to be going through this in a little bit more detail later, but the internet is a popular source for nasty things coming into your computer. You'll go to some web page, and a web page you've never been to before, and it could be a little shady, and there'll be a little pop-up message saying, you need to install this piece of software in order to be able to use this page. I go, yeah, right. Close. Because that's how you get stuff. Another way you get stuff is like through electronic mail and all sorts of things. And we'll be talking about all these things in a little bit more detail later. But anyway, the internet is the major source for these kinds of things. The other is privacy. Privacy is a strange beast. Some people don't mind, putting their wild party photos out on Facebook. I mean, that's perfectly okay. And yet, later on, when they are applying for some job someplace at a stuffed shirt kind of an organization like a bank, and they do a search for you, and they go to your public pages that you have out there on Facebook, and they see you, chug-a-lugging and acting like an idiot at a party, they go, yeah, you're not our kind of person. And so that's a privacy issue. How much you share out there does matter. There's some legal issues associated with medical records and those kind of things. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about things that you volunteer out, and then later you decide, well, I really shouldn't have done that. Well, it's kind of too late. There is no take it back when it comes to the internet. Health concerns. Now, the health concerns we're talking about is human health concerns. There's an awful lot of eye strain and carpal tunnel syndrome and posture and seating, all these kind of things that you need to be considered. So a lot of businesses spend a lot of effort making sure that the keyboard's at the correct height and all the ergonomic kind of things with the screen distances, and make you do little exercises with your wrist to make sure you don't get carpal tunnel syndrome. So anyway, yes, there's an awful lot of issues associated with the computer devices causing you physical damage. The next one talks about environmental concerns. And oddly enough, there's a lot of weird environmental concerns. First of all, a lot of the computer components are manufactured with horribly toxic materials. During the manufacturing process, they use all sorts of nasty things. And then afterwards, you have a device. You have a problem with electronic waste. You can't just take a computer and run it through a shredder and dump it in a landfill. Because there's an awful lot of nasty things in there that'll leach into the soil and poison groundwater and such. And so, the storage and disposal of these things has become a big business. There are companies out there that specialize in stripping out lead, for example, from the old style fat monitors, not the thin ones like we got now, but the CRT monitors from years ago. They have companies that do this for a living. Okay, which kind of brings us to this next one on page 25, talking about green computing. Green computing is sort of like recycling. It's a I want to reuse something and repurpose it, and all these kind of steps involved. So recycling, using energy efficient, putting sleep modes on your machine so you don't use more electricity than you need, things of that nature. It regulates the manufacturing process so that you're not using lead where lead's not required. And it's designed so that you don't have a throwaway computer. You have removable parts. So, for example, if the battery is going to fail first, you have it so that there's a user removable battery. Otherwise, I had no choice but to throw that one away and go buy me another one, which is the whole point of green computing, is to make these things last longer. And then, of course, don't throw them away at all. Donate them to someone or something like that. So the whole point of the green computing, of course, is just to make sure that you act responsibly with manufacturing, possessing it, and then disposing of it. On page 25, they talk about some differences between system software and application software. So right off the bat, system software is part of the operating system, which of course begs the question, what the heck is an operating system? Well, that is a term that has really kind of gone off the rails. In the old days, the classical definition of the operating system was a piece of software that ran first, when you first turn your machine on, that coordinated the access to resources. For example, there's many files on your storage, but how many can you get to at once, and if there's competition, who gets to win, so to speak. So it was more like device coordination. Well, now, if I go buy a copy of Windows 8.1 on a disk and stick it in my machine, I'm installing an operating system. Well, that massive disk probably has got this much operating system and that much of other stuff that are just kind of utilities. I mean, Notepad, for example. Notepad's a cool little tool for, typing notes. Is that part of the operating system? Well, not by a classical definition. No, that's just a utility program of some sort. So the operating system are typically files that you never see and you never interact with directly. So everything that you can see and everything you can click on, the Explorer and the browsers and the Start menu and the Recycle bin, all those kinds of things, that's not the operating system. The operating system is behind those things, making them work. And then we have application software. And application software has several categories. And so the book talks about productivity categories. They talk about, like scheduling and contacts and, keeping my money and all those kinds of things. Graphics and media, we're talking about photoshopping stuff and playing videos and watching videos. Personal interest, this could be travel or mapping or doing references, education, blah, 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 blah. All sorts of communication things, the browser, we talked about that. Doing email, I'm going to skip these other things. And then security kind of things, which is like your firewall and your antivirus stuff and spyware kinds of things. So those are kind of broad categories of applications. So if I asked you, where does Microsoft Word fit into this? I would say it would be in productivity/work. That's where I'm trying to actually produce documents. It's not graphics, it's not personal interest, it's not communication, it's not security, it's just plain old productivity. Cool? Okay. So, the next they talk about installing an application. So typically an application is going to come to you on a disk or off the internet, and you double click on it somehow and it launches a little installer. So installing is the process of setting up the software to run on your computer, and you typically only have to do that one time per computer. Then once it's installed, then you just run the application. So installing it the first time and then just running it all subsequent times after that. Cool? Okay. And almost all these applications, of course, have some sort of a user interface, something that you can see, an icon you can click on, something that happens. There are applications out there that you install that, quite frankly, have no interface whatsoever. They do something really cool, but you can't see them. Okay. On page 28, they talk about who are the people who actually develop these things. Well, they're developers, software programmers or developers, application developers. Anyway, someone who develops a program, an app, and writes instructions to direct the computer to do whatever the heck the thing is supposed to do. Okay, so more than likely, you guys are not developers, and that's perfectly okay. But the developers are the ones who make all the things that you can see. Cool? Okay, this is coming up pretty close to the 15-minute mark. This is a good place to stop, and we'll pick this thing up again in just a few.